All right, all you devils out there, Sam here with you. Happy Friday. It's April 23rd here. Of course, we're going to look at Bitcoin today. So, yeah, I'm a little late here getting this because I was just digging through, alternate counts here, different scenarios. I think at this point, it's really just a matter of trying to pick a roadmap here based on what comes next, where we sit right now. All right, so there's a couple of different scenarios. There is a bullish count that we're going to look at after looking first at what we'd have to call the primary count. So I'm going to start here in the weekly. Now, we've looked at this last couple of weeks, and again, full credit to Dave the Wave over on Twitter, who brought this to many people's attention, including my own. Log scale weekly, we got to recognize here that we have a technical event here that's very significant, right? He called this right as it crossed. And you can look here at the RSI, certainly, so we had a little divergence here on the RSI, and we're heading towards 50. We're not quite there yet on the Elliott oscillator, but this is significant. So, of course, we can just look back historically at some of the major pivots, right? When we had that cross on the weekly, the result was pretty substantial in terms of retracement. So for the bull trend to continue, right, we're gonna have to cross back over, right? Otherwise, it's just going to continue to grind lower. So it becomes a question of, okay, is there a count that I can make sense of here that would support what I'm seeing here, just the technical event of it? And so we want to be prepared for that. What's staring us right in the face right now for a bull? Of course, it's always hard to try and extract your bias. So you have to, that's where the TA really, where you lean on it. All right, so I'm as bullish as anyone, right? As I've said that many times, I continue to be bullish. It's just a question of what can we expect next, and where might there be opportunity to reposition yourself into the market. So again, I remember to all members or YouTube subs that are watching here, you got to keep this somewhere, right? We got to keep an eye on this. So as we sink down here, and here was the alarm I had to confirm the cross and a few other TA things, right? So we came just shy of it, but didn't tag it. So as we start to work lower here, we got to think about, okay, so is there a count here that supports this? What are the alternates? What if we go higher? What if we base here and go higher? How do we prepare for that? So I think we've got to look at a primary and an alternate here. I have both teed up. I'm working off of these. I did buy this. As I said to some members yesterday, I was a buyer if offered under 48K. So I took a little nibble on it based on the bullish count that we'll get to in a second here. But let's a couple of things to review today. Oh, let's see. If I go this side here, I'm going to go to this side here. Let's start right here. This is really where we left off last week, and you'd have to give this the advantage of being the primary, my view here. So just a quick review. So here's the 2018 rip. Here's the COVID low. Now, there's a couple of things here that are worth, I'm going to take this off just for a minute here. There's a couple of things here that are causing not so much confusion, but it's creating a couple of different paths here based on the wave relationships. So a couple of things to look at right off the bat. So note here, I am in log scale, given the range, right? So all the analysis here at a distance here, when you're out here really 8 hours and well, even 4 hours and above, you gotta do the analysis in log scale. It's too big a range. Now, if you zoom in on on a 60-minute or below, you can come out of log scale. But looking at a distance, you got to stay in log here to get perspective on it. So the first thing to note here, just working off of this, right? And again, this is just as standard as we could do it, right? Just looking for wave relationships. I don't know if I get this right on that pivot. Oh, I might be a touch off here. Get that one. That's pretty tight here. Okay. So of course you'll note here, taking the length of the 1 projected from the 2. What do I do right here? Right. That's 1618 within a tick or two. So it certainly makes you pause and consider that as the possible 3 here, right? So if it's 1, 2, this, and we looked at this as a contender because of that technical event, right? Promise you, it's not random. So we get potentially a 3rd here, but then when the kick higher, it kind of leaves you looking up here, going, are we going to complete this massive impulse here? on a pivot that's not technical, right? We're kind of in between the 175 and the 200. Now, sure, there's some technical confluence at that pivot at smaller degrees, but just looking at here, it makes me pause there and say I'm suspect of that as a major top. Just a little suspect of it. So it has me looking here saying, okay, well, I want to consider some alternates as possibilities. But based on what's in front of us, just staring us in the face with the MACD crossed over and certainly a significant pivot here. Now, is it the top? Is that the 3? Well, right now, based on the evidence we have, it's hard to argue against it at this moment in time. The only thing that would counter that is we're going to need to have some sort of kick up here to take out that high and head towards more technical levels here that we can see, well, even the 227, right? Or the 200. Just give me something technical here so I can lean into a pivot here. I think ultimately we're going up here. That's 181, but right, I'm getting ahead of ourselves. So what's a technician to do here? Well, given that technical event here, that you have to consider it seriously and say, okay, would that work? Well, of course, the immediate thing that I look at here is the length of time of this 2 that would be relative to this 4, and I just go, nope, no way. No way that's the 4 relative to that. Well, shit, I shouldn't say it that way. Unlikely, less probable that this is the 4 relative to this 2, just based on length of time. It's so far off. I think, well, anything's possible, right? I think that's less likely. It certainly fits much better with regards to this 2, right? It's just the symmetry works much better, right? It has the right look, as Elliott would say. And then, so we've got to consider that and say, okay, well, if this is not going to be the 3, even though it's at the highest probability zone for a wave 3, well, let's push it up here and say, okay, well, certainly a contender would be a higher price. Well, can we make all of this work? Well, then the 1, 2, 3. Well, then we come in here and we go, all right, well, let's just do the same thing right here. Let's take the 1 and project from the 2 here. Now let's pull that over. Oh, I'm probably off by a tick or two. I had them really tight here, but I make the point here. Just, all right, because this is exactly what I would encourage you to do. Right, as a technician, right, we're just working off of what we can deduce based off these wave relationships. Well, now I get a 1, 2. Well, here now I'm in between the 127, 1382, the second most probable location for a third. Well, note what's up here. All right, so now up here now I'm in my high probability zone, and look where I'm topping out here. So you look and you think, well, is it possible, right? Could I have it wrong, right? Again, just based off wave relationships, could the 3 be up here? And then the 4 still yet to come, that all of this would be substantially higher? Well, then you got to work through this relationship here, and you can see it, right? Like probably 1, oh shit, maybe a running flat here. 3, 4, 5. Now let's reduce that to a lower degree, right? So it's a contender, right? It was just, kind of, this is exactly what I do, right? So I would encourage you to you're working through, you're looking, you're trying to solve the puzzle. What fits best based on what we can see without getting overly influenced by the bias, just working off of the numbers, right? I know my bias is bullish, right? So I'm completely aware of that. So I try and filter through that and say, okay, am I just blindly bullish, right? I always try and use that term. We don't want to be blind bulls. Well, okay, so 1, 2, can I make this work? Does it have the right fit? Well, okay, you got to check it. So, okay, if that were the 1 here, and we're going to go running flush it. Oh, God, that's a judgment call, right? So if it's a running flat, which it could be, because that doesn't look like it's enough, right? So at least I can get a 3 into that, and then you'd have to go 1, 2 here, right? 3, 4, 5 to get that third to work. Is that a possibility? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, everything fits. It's long enough. We know this is a 4 at some degree, right? It's so much looks like a 4, right? What you would anticipate as we just kind of chop before the trend continues. Okay, oh, maybe, right? If that's 1, 2, let's take this one off. Possible? 1. Okay, even if you work the running flat, even if you use this as the 2 and say, oh, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Can't eliminate it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what did we just complete there, right? Now we'd have 1, 2. We'd be in the 3 at this degree, right? Is that possible? Oh, sure, right? I mean, we're not violating any Elliott rule set or guidelines here. We're just trying to find the right fit. What works best here? And I don't know that we can come with, well, pardon me. I know at this moment in time, we cannot come up with a definitive answer. The market needs to reveal more. I can't nail it down yet. It could be any of these. So it's really a function of now we're kind of in a hurry up and wait. Now I say that based on the fact that I bought a little bit here. Now we're going to get there in a second, but I want you to recognize here that we've got multiple possibilities here. So we have to be prepared for that. And this is, you know, again, love it or hate it in Elliott, right? So I don't care if you're doing price action or whatever, you just drawing lines. We're trying to just make our best, you know, intelligent guesstimate, an educated guesstimate on what's likely here. Because we have a couple of different scenarios, as I will often suggest, right? We work with a primary and then we look at secondary alternates so that we're prepared, so that we don't just lean all into, oh, well, the top's in, okay, so it must be retracing down to 20 grand. That's you know what we can anticipate, a retrace to the 38 or the 50 or something more significant, so that then if it starts to move away from that scenario, you're prepared for it. So right now, you just got to prepare for all of these possible outcomes. This is just as valid as where we started. We know this finished something. Again, ending diagonal. We know something finished up here. Is it this 3? Is it this 3? I mean, shit, this could all be a 1, actually. This whole thing, right? It's possible, right? The whole thing could be a 1. Right, now that would be more bearish because now you're looking for a more significant retracement. So I think that's less likely. I think we can agree here that we've completed something. It's now just a question of to what degree. The reality of this would make you think, okay, potentially now this is more severe, because if this is going to come down, well, you just look at it here, even at the weekly here, where it's not as obvious as when we go down to the daily. You just look at this prior little bit of structure. That would be a very reasonable place to anticipate. Now, let's get it back up here. Oh shit, where are you? Okay, if these are going to come down a little bit further, pretty reasonable spot to anticipate that you might run into some support here. Look, I mean, just looking at here, I know it's. Let's zoom in here a little bit, right? So who's going to be buying there, right? If it comes down to this, right? Well, we know. Right, we know whoever bought here, if it comes back down here, is going to defend this. Right, they're long from this. They're looking for that. So if we keep coming down here, we've got to in our analysis prepare for that. So well, if it does that, what's most likely going on? Well, let's. I know I'm kind of belaboring the point here, but it's really interesting. It's part of the reason I've been working on this for several hours here, is because there's so many different scenarios that work here. Let's go. Shit. Let's see. Let's stay where it's nice and clean here. Let's go down to a 4-hour. Now I'm going to stay in log scale here because I've got a range here from 8 grand to 60 grand. Does this work? Yeah, I can get that to work. 4 going up for the 5, I can get that to work. Now we've had a couple of technical things happen here. If we've completed, oh, where are you here? Shit, where's my? I want this one. If we completed that 3 here via this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, okay. What are we anticipating from that? Right? We can just sort of let's play it out as a scenario. All right, if this is 1, 2, and we've completed the 3 at this degree here, well, we can look right here and say, okay, well, knowing, again, right, it's just, this is not advanced Elliott. This is just common sense Elliott. Okay, could be this, right? So probable that something completed here. Well, if something completed here, and it were to be the 3 at this degree, 1, 2, 3, well, okay, pretty reasonable that this is where we might anticipate some support. Okay, well, right now, I've threw the 14.6 here. So in a very shallow retracement, that's a contender, right? Square root of 382. We could have that. Here's the 23.6, 38, right? This would be the high probability zone. Well, it's right you're framing the 3-4, right? So to retrace to the prior 3-4, very common retracement point. So, right, if we're going to come down a little bit lower, well, my little position here is going to get stopped out. We're going to come down. That's okay, right? I didn't, not a massive amount of size and no leverage. So if I get stopped out here, it's not, of course, nobody likes to getting stopped out. But if I do, it's not going to ruin my weekend. So if we're going to come a little bit lower here, that would be 42. I am, just as I'm a buyer here, and I'll show you why. If we come down here, I'm a buyer. If we're offered down here under 42, I'm a buyer. Just as I told some members yesterday, I offered under 48, I'm a buyer. Offered under 42, I'm a buyer. Not just because I'm bullish long term, but because the technicals support it, right? I can see by applying the technical analysis that I use and that I teach and that has been ingrained in me over 28 years of doing this, that's a must take. If offered, I will take that, just as I took this here. I'd probably look to be laddering in. Or if it came a little bit deeper, I'd be buying aggressively in here. Sure, now I'd like to see, so we note here we got a little double bottom in the RSA. I'd like to see more confirming evidence that would make sense to come down here by. So it'd be a pretty significant rip. Well, let's, having outlined this, let's just think about that. Well, remember, in terms of priority of how we approach the market technically amongst my students and members, if I've got a swing here, what I'm focused on primarily is that I've got a swing and I'm looking for an internal retracement that would go external. Right? It's as simple as that. Right? So what did the algorithm, right? What did this algo do last? Here, let's take it off here. So I've got a significant pivot here. I've got something that completed, but remember, algo doesn't care about any of this, doesn't care, 3 drives to a top, doesn't give a shit. All it cares, dominant to dominant. Okay, so if I'm going to just draw up, right, this algo from, let's take off, here, we'll take off the 4-6. Okay, so we'll just look here. So right now, all I've done is I've come to the 38. So is that a buy there? Well, possibly, right? So we've got a technical pivot here. We're not identifying this as this particular algorithm, right? So if we're going to get this algo, it's going to come down here. So perhaps we come to the 50, we get a little front run off of that structure. Wouldn't surprise me, right? Maybe we get a double bottom off of this pivot here, but right now it's just sitting there. Okay. Well, if it's going to come lower, again, my position here will get stopped out, right? Again, I can live with that. I'm going to reevaluate right down here, right? So if I see this coming down here, because I know if I'm a buyer here, I've got this algorithm at my back, right? And I know that their target is going to be, oh shit, I'm going to get these better one of these days, right here, 79K. Right? I don't have to wonder about it. There's no, oh geez, what's going on there? Dominant to dominant. If it comes to that 50, I'm a buyer. If it keeps going, right? Look, just here, another pivot here. So if we get this little pocket down here, I would start laddering in. I'm a buyer all the way to the 6.5. I'd probably, because I wouldn't trade it with leverage, I'd use the 707 is what I'd use. Well, I'd use the 707. Let me get that. Here, I'd use the 707, which would be 36 and change. So we'd be breaking this pivot here. All the potential price action support would be broken here. So if we come down below that, I'll take the hit. I'll take the hit and reevaluate. Right? No risk, no reward. Right? So there has to be some risk involved. I'm taking some risk right here. Right? I'm not overly worried about it. Sure, I'd like to see it go, but I'm not overly worried about it. Okay, so let's keep going here because I digress. So anything down here, if offered, anything down here, area of interest, how would we say it that way? Now, do we know we're going that way? Of course not. We don't know where that's going. But certainly the potential, right? If this is the 3 and we're coming for the 4, right, relative to this 2, now let's stack them up. All right, if that's going there, now I get back to a measured move, we'll look at the 23.6 right there. So a bit of confluence starts to appear. So I go, oh, okay, well, if we are coming down to 41.9 under 42, that's That's see, in my view, that's a gift, right? The market's just for the freak out from yesterday. Oh my God, we're gonna have the taxes are going up, right? I mean, one thing we can certainly say today, looking at what the stock market has done, we have lost all correlation with the market. So we everything sold off yesterday off of the news. It's not a law. It was a proposal. It's what he's thinking about. We're a long way from making that law. So the market freaks out. And it's funny, right? So if you're long and you sold because you freaked out, all you did was create a taxable event. Right? Are you sure that's what you wanted to do? Right? So you created a taxable event if you sold it. But again, we don't know if it's going to be retroactive, right? It's all just guessing, right, as to what's going to happen and whether or not it's going to pass. I sincerely doubt it would pass as it was proposed yesterday. But not to digress, as a technician, we just look at the chart and go, okay, well, everything that can be known about the fundamental analysis is reflected right now in that price. So if it comes down here as a technician, I back the truck up there. I can't lay it out any better. I've got confluence here. I've got the prior 3-4. I've got a swing high that comes right to where I want to be a buyer. I'd get an algo at my back. I know I have a target. I know right where that's probably going. Right. So remember, right? Even just because it comes down here doesn't mean it's going there, because what's going to happen right there? I'm going to get another algo with a target below it. Right? You have to break the sell side. So you can't look at it and say, oh, well, I know right where that's going. You could say if I get a reaction there, there's a probability here that it's going to at least test the sell side algo. Now, right, one side has to break or we go sideways. So why be a buyer here? All right, so we've looked at the scenarios here. We've got the possibility that this is the 3 here, that this is the larger degree 3 here, and we've completed something here. There's no way to be definitive about it right now. There's just you can't know. You can just hypothesize. Okay, could be this, could be that. Right? Which, love it or hate it, this is at least giving me a framework to work within as the market reveals itself. If we're going lower, okay, I know where I'm a buyer. If we're going higher, well, I know now I've got a scenario here that would make sense to me. All right, let's look at that, right? So for bulls that are looking here going, okay, what the hell? Oh, shit, where's the cleanest version I have of this? This might be the cleanest here. We'll build it from scratch. Okay, so right? So if we look here. So there's a couple of things to note. We know, right, we don't have to worry. So I've shown you guys this many times, right? So we know the algorithm is very active in here, right? So we can look here and say, okay, that's a few ticks off of the target here. So we know without question, we don't have to wonder about it. We know what happened there, right? And look at this here. You hear me say this all the time. How do we know it's an algorithm? Look at the reaction at the target. Right, that's how you know. So it couldn't be any, again, I've probably shown it 5,000 times. From the 50 to the target reaction. Okay, well, so we get a reaction. Now, so we look at that and say, okay, well, that completed. So do we still hold here? Is this still valid? Well, potentially now, from an Elliott perspective, this could make sense. So if we look here and look at this, so what do we've got? I know I've got an impulse here. I don't think any Elliottician is going to dispute that we get. Now, you might count it slightly differently, but I don't think there's any dispute we get an impulse here. So what I get after that, right, and I'm members and those of you know I've been fighting for this as an impulse here. Well, I'm going to have to let go of that, because for this count to work, it's got to be 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Well, we'll dig into that. All right, so is it possible here that I've gone 1 and I've just gone into a complex correction for the 2 here? Well, so why go through all of that effort? Because if this is a low and we start to go, I need to know where I am. Well, I would like to have a scenario that would give me evidence to support a theory here that's a potential too. How about I say it that way, right? That's as guarded as I can be. Possibly, right? So, I mean, okay, right? So again, why would I be a buyer here? Why would I be a buyer under 47? Well, this count is perfectly valid. All right, it's a little unusual. One, to have an expanded B via, so you see what I'm doing here? So we're going ABC, 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 ABC. So we're going W, X, Y into an expanded B. down for the C. Right, so the entire correction would be here, right? A, B, C. It's a contender, right? Now, is that just, bullporn? Well, possibly, right? But, I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'm a buyer here. Now, we haven't moved quite far enough yet, right? So I was just under 48, so 47.5, and we're sitting at 49. Right. Depending, if I was in leverage, I'd have my stop right under the pivot. I'm not, right? So I'm a little further away from it. I'd give that a little bit more room to breathe because there's the potential here. You can just kind of look at this. Certainly the potential that this is 4-like, and then there's another push down for a 5, because this is good luck, right? Oh shit, you probably have to do it as a diagonal, right? So this, I think the wick here you eliminate. So this is 4. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, extension in the 5th. I mean, it's sloppy, right? But it's possible, right? It's a contender. But there's a little bit more there that I think is worth noting. So having pulled that off, right? Recognizing that I got a high volume node here from all the time that we spent here, we built a base. Okay, well, I look there and go, okay, well, if this is the 1 and that's the 2, well, of course, right, as we just drew it up here, I'm going to pull from the 1, right, with my Elliott hat on. Okay, so I'm not thinking about the algorithm. I've just come to the 38. Okay, if this is an A, B, C, okay, at least I want a technical pivot here. Okay, so as a 38, okay, right, certainly possibility here. If we start to rocket higher, that's likely the count we're going to use here if we're going up towards a 3. If, heavy emphasis on if. So I look at that and say, okay, well, that's workable, but remember, the algorithm doesn't care, so the algorithm's only going to look at dominant to dominant. So where am I there? So if I'm going from this dominant to this dominant, well, front run on the 50, maybe, right? It's not the cleanest finish I've ever seen, but at least I'm technical here. Right? We've seen front runs on the 50, front runs on the golden zone. We've seen, right? We know the algorithm will front run, right, to leave those that don't know any better to recognize that potentially it'll front run on you and leave you behind. Possible. So, I mean, I'm not expecting this to just rip up here. This is going to be a fight to get through because, again, as I show you every week, right, the first thing we have to do, we have to get through this one. Well, shit, the first one we have to do is get through this one. We got to get through that. Once we get through that, probably got to get through that. Then we got to get through all the way back. So until we get back over this pivot, this is an uphill grind. Because this algorithm is going to be sitting here looking to take it down to the golden zone. I think we looked at that not too long ago, right? So, and we know Bitcoin loves the golden zone, so dominant to dominant. Well, if we came down here, could this work, right? Is there an Elliott count that would support that? If this is 3, 4, and there's another kick down here, right? Or if we go up here, shit, this could be 1, 2, 3. We don't know. This could be A, B, C. I don't, we don't know what's coming, right? So you just look at it and say, well, okay, well, what shape does it take? Is it a 3? Well, I'd be a little cautious there, right? Recognizing the golden zone is going to be a magnet for Bitcoin, right? Because this algorithm dominates. Well, shit, it dominates every market, but certainly it dominates here. And we know Bitcoin has an affinity to the golden zone, but we just saw one work from the 50 and go to target here. So you can't just, oh shit, I'm going to wait for the golden zone because it'll turn and rip at the 50. You never know. So you have to be prepared for either. So as we sit here with that now, right, none of that is in play yet. That's just potentially what's going on here. So we look here and potentially now the C's in of the 2, right? Unusual, but possible. So what else is there? Okay, well, so we looked at it from dominant to dominant. If I get it right on that pivot. So I get a perfect overlap between the 50 and the 38. So I've got a bit of confluence here. I've got a high volume node. Now the other thing that's here, which is worth noting, I know this is getting a little crowded here, so let me pull some of this off so you can see this. The other thing is here, right? So I'm kind of curious to see what the volume profile looks like on this move through all this chop. So I'm just going to go over to a fixed range and just draw it up. Okay, so from the low here to my absolute high, what does that look like? Well, lo and behold, look where the point of control is. Now, if I start to put all of this together here and I say, okay, that's my 1. I've got the 38 on top of the 50 on top of the point of control at a high volume node when I'm looking at visible range. So all of this right here is kind of interesting to me, which is why, right, as I said to some members yesterday, I'm a buyer if offered under 48. Down we come, little, it's just, right, it's so typical, right, slight front run. Now, is that the low? Well, fuck, of course, nobody knows. Nobody knows. I don't know. Nobody on Twitter knows. None of your big influencers, nobody knows, right? So let's agree that nobody knows. Could it be the low? Well, I don't know. But if we start to come out of here, right, I've got a position I'm comfortable with. I can reduce the risk if we start to push a little higher. Now, what am I looking for? I'm just looking for a higher low to confirm that I've got a contender here. Now, what if I go here and start to roll over? Okay, well, then you're wrong, right? We're coming down here. There is no certainty. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for a 3 to come out of here. That's what I'm looking for. But there's no way to confirm it until we get, first thing, we got to clear that algo. If I can clear that algo, then I got blue sky. Then I have no sell side resistance. So it's always that right there. When we're at that 618, does it turn? If it starts to come away from it, right, it's not going to be an impulse now, is it? Right? Well, pardon me. I shouldn't say that. It could be, right? Because we could do this. Right? So we could go 1, 2, and then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it could be part of just the subdivision of an impulse that's underway. But when it starts doing that, right? This is where you got to tighten your stop, right? We get right here, it hits the 618, we start to roll over. Well, it better hold here. Here, let's see if I can just draw it up here. I'm kind of eyeballing this, but it'll probably be pretty close, right? So if it comes right here, and we start to roll over. Well, I'd be a little bit concerned there, right? Because one possibility, that's 1, 2, and we're going much deeper. Now we're back to, oh shit, I won't be able to find it. We'll come back to it. Now we're back to the possibility that we put the big 3 in, and now this could be A, B, bigger C. All of this is possible, right? So it's good news, bad news, right? So this is just the reality of trading, guys. Deal with it. There is no way to know here, but what I can see is if this starts to come down here, well, at that moment right there, right? So let's just play it out. There better be a reaction here, right? At the inside, right? There better be a reaction right there. So for the possibility that this is 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to come out of here from this and go 3. Now I know right where I am. I know just what happened. I killed the idea of the retracement. I've blown through the sell side resistance. I got blue sky. I got no resistance. But that's not where we are right now. This is all just potential. Equally as much as the potential for this to come up here, tag that, right? Easily. I mean, you can just see it, right? We could come up, tag the resistance here. Let's just look at it, right? So this was prior support. Now it becomes the resistance. We come up here, we tag this, and we're down we go, right? Just no telling, right? There's no way to know that. You can carve it out and say, oh, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, coming down for the 5. I can certainly see that possibility that we're coming down here, which is why you don't over lever here. You trade with a stop. You do the math. How much can I afford if I'm wrong? First question, always, how much am I going to lose if I'm wrong? Not how much am I going to make if I'm right. How much can I afford to lose per my account? Do I want to add leverage to that? I wouldn't. I didn't. I wouldn't add leverage to that. I don't know yet. This is a kind of a, okay, I'll take a trade off of this, but not a big bite. That's just a snack. That's just an appetizer bite. Okay, I like it. I like what I see here. I like it. Partly the reason I like this is because everybody's thinking the top's in, right? So the more bearish the market gets, the more bearish crypto Twitter gets. Not that it's overwhelmed, right? The hodlers are always going to just sit long and strong. But the more people say, mainstream media, oh, the Bitcoin crashed again, the more bullish I get. So is there a route for me to see how this could dig out of here? Well, there it is. I think what's more troubling is what's happened over here in some of the alts. All right, so look at Litecoin. All right, we'll look at Litecoin and ETH. Right, so this count just got kind of hammered here. So right now you'd look at that and go, oh, is that the 5 in here off of all of this? Is that the 5? Well, that's a clear ABC, right? So of course it goes right to the golden zone. Right, so where are we here with some of the alts, right? Again, I'm log scale here. All right, coming off the 2, is that 3? We'd considered this possibly a triangle. Right now, I think you got to go A, B running flat. Is that my top? Or is that 1, 2? 1, 2 before we go again? No way to know, right? But all I can see here is that I get a technical pivot. Right, so that's enough for me. I can get that right on there. Oh, pardon me, it's this one. All right, so here right to the 233, I get a reaction. Right, so I know what happened there. I know there's an algorithm with a target right here. Well, if it does that, what does that do to my count? Well, my guess would be that would not be the top. That if this is going to hold, because that, I mean, could be, right? So, but if this is going to hold as a running flat, and this is 1, 2, I doubt that's going to be 5. I mean, could be, right? Of course, right? But you'd be anticipating, oh, 1, 2. All right, I'm looking for a big 3. I'm looking for the 3 to be up here at 724. All right, again, just doing the same thing we always do, right? If that's 1, 2, maybe I'm going to come out of here in a diagonal. Well, here's 1618. I'm coming up here towards 700. ETH is a little bit more unusual, right? So looking at ETH here, that surprises me. So looking at this now, having come back down here, so here's where the algo launched, right? Again, same thing, right? So we had, this was a golden corner, then we come to the 50. Well, we don't make target here. We're long past, the 80%, right? So that's been realized. So we could really almost take this off. All right, so let's look at that. Well, does that look like that's the 5? I mean, of course, again, it could be, but I'm more inclined to think this is just a big sideways box, right, and very 4-like. Right? Yeah, we got some overthrow, so A, B, C, back to the 50. We start over again. This does not look to me, right, like that's done. Looks like that has more to go. So I'm bullish of Ethereum here. I have long-term position here, but I have a small little piece of this off of this retrace here because I bought it along with Bitcoin. This is funky, right? So this is a little unusual to go up and come all the way down that hard, right? But nice retrace. So note this, right? Of course, right? What's the first thing it's going to run into, right? 50 to the tick. Where's that target? Right, swing, 50 to the tick, target's right at the golden zone. But that, right, so that would be interesting because note, we'd be potentially now overlapping the 1. All right, so 1, 2, 3, if this is 4, if that were to go 4 and we're going up for the 5, you'd want to see that 1 hold, right? They could front run it, right? Just like they typically will do. So they might come down here, front run off the 1 and keep the impulse idea alive. But this is unusual. Right, that kind of price action. I was quite surprised by that, which is why I thought it was an opportunity. So A, B, C into the 4, we hold the 50. So we're just back here. We've got an unrealized target. Come back to Bitcoin here. I'll wrap it up. Oh shit, 37 minutes. You got to start here. What did we complete here? Right, that remains the larger question. Which 3? It's a 3 of some degree. Which 3 did we complete? This one? The larger one? Right? Could be. Right? A lot of people think we completed the larger one. If that's the case, then a much deeper retracement is to be expected. If it's the smaller degree 3, lots of upside still to come. I'm inclined that direction. Again, that's my bullish bias coming through. That's why I took that trade. I'm not going to risk a lot on that. But I think you could be a buyer here with a stop under that pivot or at least, somewhere under this, right? Depending on your risk tolerance and your account size. And again, whether you're trading with leverage or not. The alternate being that we're coming much deeper, right? So if we just wrap up here, if this is going to hold, right? Remember here if this is going to hold as the 3, we're coming down to the 4. We can just look here, say, well, okay, well that sure would be an interesting retrace into the 4 here at the median line at the 23.6 before we go again. So now are we coming down here to, what are we in, the 33-ish? Again, it's right back to this 3-4, right? You can see that very clear path how that could play. Right, not going to end the bull market, right? We'd have a target up here, 122.6. 618. So you just got to deal with it one swing at a time. Or you're just a long-term holder and you just any sort of retrace, right? Any opportunity to buy it, 15, 20K off of the top. Well, 15, I should say. almost 15, 15 off the top. Right, there are definitely people that were buyers there. Right, if you look at the order flow, right, so you know there are buyers that came in there. Now, is it enough to get us out here? Well, again, we're going into the weekend, right? So you never know. Weekend's always a wild card. So you got to prepare for all of these scenarios and have a roadmap for however the market reveals itself. What's next? If you're comfortable with the small buy there, I think that's not unreasonable. If you'd rather wait until you get more clarity on the Elliott count, then I would sit tight and see how far we're going to come down, if we're going to keep coming down. But if it starts to go, right, look for that first little retrace to give you the opportunity to get in, right? Now, can we break the sell side? Everything we just went through. Okay, guys, I went kind of long there. Oh, shit, I had other stuff I wanted to show you, but I've run so long. Oh, I probably should wrap it there. Okay, that'll do it here. I've kind of belabored the points here that we have a lot of possible scenarios here. So keep your alternates, right? Even if you keep a quad, somewhere have that weekly, have a daily, have a 4-hour, have a 1-hour, have a couple of different roadmaps here so you're prepared for whatever comes next. You know what's likely the next opportunity, right? If you're a bull, right? The next opportunity to be a buyer. All right, guys, I'll wrap it there. You guys have a good weekend. I'm moving on Tuesday, so I will probably be off on Monday and Tuesday. The team will likely step in here to pick up while I'm in the boxing up my house. So I will probably be back on Wednesday, Thursday. I'm not sure. Okay, but I will likely not be on for members Monday and Tuesday, and hopefully back Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, guys. Until then, take it easy.